Hello everybody, welcome to the NPTEL SWAYAM course on Customer Relationship Management. This is Dr. Swagato Chatterjee from VGSOM IIT Kharagpur who is taking this course for you. We are in week 8 and these are the last two videos that we will discuss, and the topic is basically global CRM. This presentation is also made by Mr. Rahul Goswami, my PhD student, and that is why I mentioned his name. The presentation is pretty well made, and we will discuss that. Some topics that we have not covered in CRM, but which will also be important in the context of customer relationship management is the customer CRM analytics, the customer relationship management analytics. Now, CRM analytics, the major topics other than the CLV calculation, customer lifetime value calculation, other than that, whatever topics comes to be interesting is basically the RFM analysis, which is called recency, frequency and monetary customer analysis. Second is like marketing mix model, that how you can decide that how much money you will spend on acquisition of the customer and how much money you will spend on the retention of the customer if you are the person who is budgeting marketing expenditures. And the third one is basically recommendation engine and market basket analysis. So, these three things I have along with many other things I have already covered in marketing analytics course, which is given in the spring semester from January onward, or otherwise you will find the videos. If you search in our NPTEL website, you will find the videos from the past run. So, you should means the audience should go and listen to those videos, because I did not want to repeat those videos again, because that will probably curtail the valuable time that we get, only 20 hours in this particular case. So, I would strongly suggest that you go and listen to that videos, because those are also important topics under the CRM umbrella. Now, today because we are not discussing the analytics part, today in a very interesting thing that we are going to discuss is CRM in the global context. Now, this is something that you will probably not find in normal CRM books. This is something which is very specific to organization who has their global footprint. Either they are exporting to the global world, or they have multiple offices in multiple cities and multiple countries, and they are collaborating with each other. For example, let us say IT firms like IBM or TCS, who has multiple different kinds of customers. Now, a client in Germany and a client in Japan or a client in USA will have different kinds of preference, because the people are different, their value systems are different. So, if people are different, their value systems are different, then the customer relationship management has to be different as well. And that is something that we have to embrace, we have to understand carefully, and that is in that context this global CRM becomes an important topic of discussion. So, today we will be covering this CRM and global CRM, the concept, and then CRM across cultures, what is the conceptual framework, certain case studies, and how to manage a global account, how to what are the situations where CRM was done right or wrong. So, mainly case study based discussion with certain conceptuals. This will be the this thing for the next two videos. So, what is CRM? CRM is a strategic process of selecting the customers a firm can most profitably serve, and of shaping interactions between a company and these customers with the goal of optimizing the current and future value. So, current and future value of the customers for the company is something that you want to maximize. And the process of achieving that is continuing dialogue with customers. We had also discussed about this, ensuring all touchpoints are active and differentially tailored treatment. So, every person is different, or as much micro segmentation possible. You have to do that, and based on that you have to take a decision. So, this is basically overall operational CRM is. Now, what is global CRM? Global CRM is the strategic application of the processes and practices of CRM by firms operating in multiple countries. So, if the firm is operating in multiple countries, this comes into the picture, or by firms serving customers who span multiple countries. So, either the firm itself is in multiple countries, or the customers will be in multiple countries, which incorporates relevant differences. So, what are the various things that are different? Either the business practices are different, or the competition is different, or regulatory characteristics are different, country characteristics are different, or consumer characteristics. So, these are basic things which are different, and we have to slowly think about how these things are different and what can be done. Ultimate objective is same. You all again want to maximize customer value, but customer value, the definition of customer value will be very different if the customer is located in one place or customer is located in multiple places, or versus you as an organization is located in one place or you as an organization is located in multiple places. In both these cases, the definition, how you define what will be the customer value generation process, that will be very different. How? Let us take some examples. So, before we talk about these differences like business practices, competition, regulatory, blah blah blah, let us talk about how culture affects. So, culture is something that is different in different places. So, when we discuss about culture, you have to discuss about two culture. One is the individual culture and one is organizational culture. So, customer level culture is individual culture and organizational culture. Now, you have to also understand in a service context, not only customer level culture becomes important, but also the employee level culture also is important, which is different from the organizational culture. For example, let us say I am coming from a background where let us say non-veg food is not considered to be something bad. Let's assume there are various people in our country who consume non-veg food, and let us say non-veg food is not considered to be anti-environment, anti this, anti that. They think that this is part of the ecosystem. On the other hand, there is an organization, let us say, and that organization is run by people. It is a family owned organization, and in that family owned organization, the owner of the organization believes that food habits are basically related to whether you are pro-environmental or non-pro-environmental, and definition of pro-environmental is whether you are having veg food or non-veg food. Let us say that he believes that, he or she believes that, and because he is a family run organization, he thinks that okay, this organization should have this particular culture in it. So, now if these two people, I as an employee of this organization is trying to serve somebody who is from Germany or USA, where probably non-veg consumption is pretty common, I as an employee will treat my people, my clients at a different way, and the organization will treat the clients as a different way, because the organization, the whole organization in at large have a different belief, and I probably does not fit in this organization, might have a different belief. Now, this is very contradictory beliefs. Not always the beliefs are so much contradictory. So, recently we were discussing, we were researching on something called spirituality, that whether a person is spiritual or a person is religious. A religious person goes to the temple, goes to the let us say mosque or church, and he has certain routine. Every day 5 times he probably go for namaz, or every day at a certain period of time he goes to the temple or in his own house does certain puja, etc., etc. So, this is a religious person. For him, the decorum, the process is very important. Let us say there is another person who is a spiritual person. It can be also a person who is both spiritual and religious. There can be people who can be both spiritual and religious. There can be also people who are either spiritual not religious, or either religious not spiritual. All these combinations are possible. What is spiritual? A spiritual person is somebody who thinks that there is a God or a superpower that exists outside, and we are connected to that, and whatever we do, by doing good things, we are trying to basically getting connected with that God or the superpower that is there. And whether there is one God or multiple gods or whatever, that is a different story altogether, but he thinks or she thinks that there is somebody outside, and we can connect with that somebody outside through our good deeds. Now, for this person, probably the behavior is not so important in terms of the decorum, in terms of the rituals. For him, normal pro-social behavior is something that is enough. Now, if these two people, this kind of people are there in an organization, that is a individual employee's cultural or probably personality related aspects. Now, the organization itself can have an overall cultural aspect. For example, let us say if it is Ramakrishna Mission, let us say Ramakrishna Mission is a spiritual organization. They allows different kinds of, for our students, when we were students, we were allowed to have our own religious practice, but it preaches spirituality. Then there can be another organization which can preach religiousness. Now, the organization itself might have a culture. So, for example, there might be different kinds of madrasas, let us say, where reading the Quran is very important. So, they believe that through the procedure you can bring discipline in the life, and this discipline in the life will actually probably will, through that you will be able to connect with the God. So, that particular institutions will have a different viewpoint, and these particular institutions will have a different viewpoint. Within a religion also there can be different organizations who have different viewpoints. So, now an individual can have a different viewpoints. Now, all this one comes together because services is a human intensive behavior. Let us say you and I am serving you, I am a doctor, you are a patient. Oftentimes, what kind of cultural belief you have, what kind of cultural belief I have will impact our decision, how I will give you the service, whether how much fee I will be, how much, what kind of information I will disclose in front of you, how much information I will not disclose. Many things will come into this picture. And if that is the case, then we have to study the cultural aspect both at the customer level and at the organizational level. Customer level is every aspect of CRM from IT and supply chain to marketing and strategy must be reassessed in global corporation. IT has to model customers differently across borders and figure out how to align reporting. Marketers have to know the laws about sharing data, salespeople need to communicate sensitively. So, there are various places where the customer culture will come into the picture. And firm level culture, it is the differences in competitive environment, technological infrastructure, political systems and regulatory variations, and differences in the challenges faced by global firms. So, these are all actually impact the organizational culture. Now, let me give some example. The one that I gave just now, these two definitions are very broad. Let me give some example. For example, we have a Hofstede scale, 5-4 scale. There is collectivism or individualism, there is long term orientation, there is masculinity, femininity, and there are two other aspects. We will come to that. I think there is indulgence and restraint, whether you do lots of indulge lots of consumption or not. And then fifth point I forgot. So, collectivism, individualism I already told. So, collectivism, individualism, let us say this is a cultural definition. Oftentimes, it has been seen that Western countries are individualistic countries, that human, your own need, your own belief, your own comfort matters a lot. And in a collectivist society, you sometimes sacrifice your own comfort, your own belief for the global belief. Now, whether that is right or wrong, it is a different story, because in some certain cases it has been seen to be right. Like individualistic societies can adapt to change. Collectivist societies are very cohesive, they do not let themselves change very frequently. So, for example, in a designing website context, Japanese web users trusted a local website least, were least satisfied and were least loyal as compared to US, Canada and Germany web users. So, because the Japanese are basically the collectivist society. In the case of repeat purchase, a stronger link exists between the human elements of service and sales representative on repeat purchase intentions for collectivist culture compared to individualistic culture. So, in collectivist culture, the human interaction matters more rather than the performance of the particular product. So, we will see that in our this thing also, in our India also, that when we try to sell something, how good you are communicating, how good you are connected with the person, what kind of personal level of attachment you have, that plays a major role along with product quality and service quality, but this thing also plays a very important role, and that is something which is very different in an individualistic society. Within individualist society, what happens? Investment in customer relationships. So, how to do that? You send direct mail does not affect perceived relationship investment. So, direct mails do not work basically. preferential treatment is not effective. This is very different from Indian context. In Indian context or in collectivist context, preferential treatment is something that we love. But here preferential treatment is not effective, but interpersonal communications and tangible rewards are effective in these three countries, USA, Belgium and Netherlands. So, which is very different. Here we somebody gives you preferential treatment in a day to day life, that gives you better satisfaction than somebody is giving you certain discounts, certain offers. If everybody gets offered, you do not feel good. If you get offered and somebody does not get offer, or if you get preferential treatment and somebody does not get preferential treatment, that gives you more pleasure. Now, that is very different and which is not the case in case of individualistic countries. Now, in the firm level, how it is different? Let us say IBM Global Service explain drivers of successful CRM in 3 global geographic areas. Just check that how the drivers of successful CRM is different in these 3 places. In Americas, businesses in the Americans found CRM value proposition development the greatest challenge. So, CRM value proposition is one of the major problem here. In the EMEA, that means Europe, Middle East kind of a situation, and Africa, I think, capabilities in risk assessment, customer data integration, data ownership and process change the greatest challenges in the implementing CRM. So, here the process becomes very more important. Here what should be the outcome, the value proposition becomes more important when you are trying to implement CRM. Let us say it is a new organization, let us say it is a retail organization and you are IBM and you are asking them to adopt CRM strategies. IBM has their own tools and etc. So, they went ahead and shown them these tools and then shown that why do not you adopt it. Now, IT part is different. Another part which is more important than developing the tool is to make people use the tool. Now, these people who are habituated with same kind of probably bookkeeping and this and that will be not interested to adopt CRM very easily. Now, how to make them adopt? In an American context, you can make them adopt by giving a good value proposition. You can say that okay, this CRM will give you this, that, the outcome, if you focus on the outcome, that makes more important. In a European context or Middle East context, they are very much risk averse. So, risk assessment becomes more important, the process becomes more important, the data security becomes more important. So, these are the things which are more important. And in Asia Pacific context, which is further east, stakeholder assessment and CRM value proposition development most challenging. So, outcome is more challenging and not how you define outcome, how the stakeholders collectively define the outcome, that becomes important. So, these are very different cultural aspects that you can see in different CRM contexts. So, process change was very important for successful CRM in all these 3 areas, and organizational alignment of CRM priority was EMEA give the highest priority to organizational alignment, then Americas and then Asia Pacific. Why? Because Asia Pacific people are more accustomed. So, it is a collectivist thing, collectivist organization. So, they can say that okay, if it is organizational alignment is there, then I have no issues. Now, what are the conceptual framework? So, the various people have given various conceptual framework. We have picked up one where we are saying that customer perceived relationship investment will actually lead to customer firm relationship quality, and internal factors and external factors which are macro factors. Internal factors and external factors which are macro factors, that is something that ultimately impact your micro factors. And the micro factors, for what you do targeted marketing like targeted offers, loyalty program, then you perceive relationship investment you try to create, and you also try to, that leads to perceived relationship investment. So, this is the relationship basically. And other marketing activities, not only the targeted marketing activities, let us say ads and let us say certain other promotions. These also impacts the effectiveness of this targeted marketing activity. What it leads to? It leads to perceived relationship investment, and then your risk assessment and etc. will lead to firm, customer and firm's relationship quality. So, as you do marketing initiatives and very targeted marketing initiative also, that will lead to the quality improvement. The quality improvement, relationship quality will create two types of loyalty. We talked about this. Loyalty can be defined in attitudinal loyalty and behavioral loyalty, if you remember. So, attitudinal loyalty and behavioral loyalty gets created, and when that gets created, customer upselling and cross selling happens, customer retention happens, and new customer acquisition also happens. So, this comes from word of mouth, this comes from probably repurchase, and this comes from patronization. So, that is what I am trying to say, that even in a B2, in a global context also this particular thing applies. Now, companies that strive to create value for customers across cultures face challenges in terms of both micro and macro factors. So, these macro factors are very different in different countries. How do you define macro factors? If you remember, this is basic marketing first year's context, which is what we do is PESTLE: political, economical, social, technological, legal and environmental factors. We also do SWOT for internal factors, SWOT analysis, or Potter's 5 force. This is the two analysis, just go and search about them. I will not cover this here, because these are marketing or strategy basic courses, basic topics. Just go and read about what these things are, but these are separate internal factors and external factors, and they are very different. The legal or environmental laws in India and the legal and environmental laws in Europe will be very different. The socio-cultural issues in India, the socio-cultural issues in other countries will be very different. So, you being the same company, if you try to serve in multiple countries, you can face different kind of situations. Macro factors involve differences that affect entire country or region. Internal factors are management objectives, corporate culture and country specific strategies of the company, and external factors are trade barriers, like the one I told, PESTLE. These are certain external factors. One easy example is McDonald's. So, McDonald's, when they came to India, McDonald's is a burger company. Okay, so, burger, first of all, they generally sell beef burger. Now, beef burger is something which is not at all accepted in India. So, what they did is they came up with some chicken burger or some mutton burger or something like that. Now, they also found that in India there is a huge proportion of people who are non-veg, who are veg and who do not even touch non-veg food. Now, for that there was Maharaja Tikki burger and etc. came in. So, Maharaja Tikki burger, this Maharaja term is associated with India. By telling this particular line, you are specifically saying that this particular burger is meant for India, and then it is a veg burger basically. So, McDonald's have adapted their menus and their positioning of various elements of marketing. Means this is only product, the price, the promotion and etc. To largely vegetarian population in India they focused on, and that is a very now McDonald's is present in many countries. In another countries they do not do that, but India is a big country, they know there is a huge customer base possible, and if they can enter here they have to adapt to India's cultural background. So, that is what they did, which is a classic case of how external factors impact your marketing decisions. What are the micro factors that can impact? Micro factors involve individual consumers within those countries or regions that I just told. For example, let us say in India, I am talking about one single customer rather than so many customers. And how to tackle one single customer? You can do targeted marketing ads. So, targeted marketing activities of the firms directly affect the perceived relationship investment with the customer. Traditional marketing activities such as advertisement and distribution are designed for a segmentation paradigm, not a customization paradigm. So, this is something that you can also do. These affect the customer's familiarity with the firm's brand and should thus moderate the effect of targeted marketing activities on perceived relationship value. And customer relationship orientation moderate the effect of CRO, as I told, relationship effect moderate the effect of perceived relationship investment on quality of the customer relationship. So, this is what I just told, that you can do targeted marketing activity, you can do other marketing activity. This will moderate the effect here, and this will further impact here, which will be moderated by the relationship CRO, which is the effect the customer relationship orientation. So, these are some of the broad customer framework, conceptual framework of this particular concepts. And then higher quality of customer firm relationship will lead to higher levels of both behavioral and attitudinal loyalty. As I just told, those higher levels of behavioral and attitudinal loyalty will lead to greater profits through effective customer retention, increased customer value through cross selling. So, these are some of the things that will happen. And profiling based on behavioral and attitudinal loyalty, profiling means segmentation, will lead to more effective customer acquisition. How? Let us take the examples of Häagen-Dazs. So, Häagen-Dazs positioning strategy in China as the luxury brand of ice cream for adults is an example of utilizing micro factors to position effectively the brand for its target segments in the country. So, ice cream is generally sold to kids, that is a target segment, because kids or youngsters like it. But here we are creating a luxury brand of ice cream, which is targeted towards the adults and not the kids, and they utilize the micro factors like customers own preference to this particular thing, how much what kind of benefits I give, what kind of advertisements I do, which will ultimately lead to. So, what are the challenges of Häagen-Dazs in China? China's emerging middle class were being exposed to Western based dairy based foods in 1980s. So, from 1980s onwards, China was slowly opening up, which happened 10 years later in our country, and we were also slowly opening up to the global world. So, that is why the middle class was getting exposed to Western based dairy food products. Most of the Chinese are lactose intolerant and few consumer dairy. So, this is something which is a very huge challenge, that if the individual, it is not related to the culture, it is the individual's problem. It's if they are lactose intolerant, then what will you do? American annual per capita consumption of ice cream around 1980s was 9 kg, whereas Chinese consume fruit as dessert rather than ice cream. So, there was a huge scope, but there was a very huge barrier as well. Compared to Western countries, Chinese have a relatively low per capita income during 1990s. So, that is also a challenge, and the Chinese population was known to be extremely price sensitive. Now, this is a cultural aspect. This might be an internal factor, but this is a cultural factor. Despite of this challenge, Häagen-Dazs decided to take a huge societal and cultural risk and set up operations in mainland China. So, what did they do? Consumer characteristics of Chinese consumers, they give a lot of importance on how they are perceived by peers. So, here in this kind of a situation, what other people tell about you, the social norm, or I would not say only the social norm, the social viewpoint becomes very important to you. You would rather want to be looked good by other people than whatever you want to do on your own. So, that is a very important thing, which is very different in an individualistic culture, where you give your value systems, your own I would say opinion huge importance. In Chinese context, other people's opinion become more important. So, your social identity is bigger identity than your self identity. So, if that is the case, the central cultural principle of saving face governs many of their daily actions. So, they want to show that they are saving money. So, face acts as a driver, this affects as a driver for the growth of luxury goods in China, and Chinese use luxury products to demonstrate their status. So, and economic success. So, they want to show that okay, I am a person who is successful and etc. So, this is something that actually tried slowly opening up, and creating a opportunity for the luxury products. So, Chinese consumer has a deep appetite for luxury brands, especially for people with newly created wealth. And why newly created wealth was getting created? You see, from 1980s onward, as China was liberalizing a little bit, the income inequality was also going up. If you can check the curve of Chinese economics, though it says that okay, everything we do in the domain of consumerism and in the domain of capitalism, and then what is the communism and etc. But what happened is that the income inequality went up. Obviously, the poverty went down because poor people got shifted up, but income inequality was still there. And the more the income equality and the more this kind of cultural background is there, that I want to be shown to be wealthy or highly praised by other people, I want to show off by buying luxury products. And that is this kind of behavior is not only common in China, many other countries in and around China will probably show this kind of behavior. Chinese consumption of luxury brands will account for 60% of global demand by 2020. So, this is something which becomes a external factor, which makes it an interesting point for Häagen-Dazs to focus on this particular country. So, how did the position? Say decided to direct the brand to satisfy Chinese demand for luxury goods that act as obvious markers of economic status. So, McKinsey pointed to growth of luxury services is greater than growth of luxury products. So, China will focus on services more. So, Häagen-Dazs entered as luxury product brand, but repositioned itself as a service brand. That is what they did. So, they came up initially as a product brand, like you sell ice cream, but then they repositioned as a service brand. So, what other service brands position themselves as ice cream brands, whereas Häagen-Dazs position itself as Western icons of luxury. Other ice cream brands position themselves as ice cream brands only, but these guys position themselves as a Western icons of luxury. They didn't focus on the ice cream part, but the luxury part they focused on. So, Vice President of the company's Asia Pacific operations told reporters in 1998 that what Rolls-Royce is to cars, Häagen-Dazs is to ice cream. So, that is how they position themselves not as a utilitarian product or a hedonic product, but a luxury product. So, which is very different positioning. So, what kind of marketing mix they took? First of all, the product high quality ice cream. Chinese food culture was based on Chinese food culture, the green tea flavor was very common, and based on Chinese cultural traditional foods, moon cakes as gifts they came up, ice cream hot pots as a traditional Chinese meal was also being encouraged. So, this was their product, and in the service part what they do? They came up with high end cafe. So, this is the convenience part, I would say, product, price, place. So, the place part is this. So, ice cream cafes. So, Chinese consumers prefer ice cream as a dining experience in a well decorated shop. So, they went a very fancy kind of a cafe and focus on high end real estate, all imported products and local cafe managers. The cafe manager will be local, but everything else will be very posh. What kind of promotional strategy they took? They focus on indulgence, affordable luxury. So, this is something that is important. You will show luxury, but that has to be also accustomed with affordability, because Chinese people, only people who will like this is the people who have just now got wealth. So, that kind of people if you are targeting, you cannot be very luxury. Affordable luxury is something that you have to focus on, and intense sensuality in a manner appropriate to Chinese culture. On the other hand, company investment heavily to create brand awareness as a premium brand image. So, they did lots of ads, lots of I would say positioning initiatives have been taken to improve the brand image. And what was the pricing strategy? Chinese consumers crave exclusivity, image and prestige. So, higher price with an established brand name delivers all that. So, that is what they give. Not very high price, because affordability was an issue, but much higher than the existing brands, and that helped Häagen-Dazs a lot. So, I will stop here in this particular video, and in the next part we will come up with other case studies which will discuss about how various companies have focused, repositioned and marketed themselves in the global CRM context. Thank you very much for being with me in the video. See you in the next video.